So today's topic is related to the Indian foreign policy. Those who do not know me, my name is Sankar Sir. I am a faculty, also the founder of RAYACADEMY. And those who already know, that is fine. So as a part of the topic of international relations, there are many sections of international relations. So I'll be speaking in both Hindi and English to make everyone comfortable. And whenever you face any difficulties understanding my topic, please let me know. Today's topic is going to be very interesting, considering the fact that after Narendra Modi became Prime Minister, there are a lot of things has changed during the course of time. And as you might know, that Narendra Modi as Prime Minister, he has given a lot of emphasis on foreign policy. And this international relations is important for both general studies as well as for the optionals, and especially the political science and IR option. So as the IR topic itself is a very vast topic, today I have taken a specific area, specific portion, where I'll be specifically talking about within that direction. And as I told you that in case if you face any kind of trouble, please let me know. I will repeat once again. Now, there are a couple of, before I start the foreign policy, this foreign policy might be familiar to many of the students. And for some of the students, this foreign policy might be completely new. So first of all, let me clear certain things before I start this chapter. What type of question will be coming in Indian foreign policy? The question will be most contemporary. Contemporary means current affairs based. So from the date of examination, last 1 year of current affairs, that too also related to international relations, will be important for your exam. Okay, पिछले एक साल तक आप लोगों को current affairs के बारे में you have to study. And last 6 months of exam will be much more important for your exam point of view. Okay. Number two, what are the resources to follow related to current affairs? Is there any book or not? As you know that current affairs itself is a very dynamic topic, and if you look into the question pattern, you will find out that, as I have already informed you, the questions are most dynamic, questions are more contemporary. So to answer the contemporary questions, there is no standard book. There are some books which will give you basic information. But if you fully depend on the book, and if you think that by reading the book only I'll be able to qualify the exam, that is not going to help you. So I would always suggest you that your resources has to be limited, and that will be mostly based on current affairs, and it has to be authenticated. So I would always suggest you that Ministry of External Affairs website is one of the best source for the IR. Okay, MEA website, Government of India, Ministry of External Affairs website, Government of India is one of the best source for international relations. Even you can directly copy the content from MEA and paste it in your answers. No problem. You can do that. Okay, because they are most authenticate. Whatever information is available, that is government's information. So the information, that is the resources which I am trying to talk about it. That means current updates with MEA website. And if you are not able to follow both, So already I'll be giving you the notes related to the international relations. I have prepared all of the notes of each topic. Motilal Sahu, again repeat the website, Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India. Okay, Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India is the website. So it's available. That is all authentic informations of Government of India. Why I'm telling you? Because international relations is a sensitive topic. For example, in the recent time, there is a lot of development that has happened between India and China. You might have seen that China is trying to explore, especially the northeastern region. That means you might have also seen that recent visit of Vice President of India to China has created certain dissentment among these Chinese officials. So I would always suggest you that whatever information you write in terms of international relations, that has to be absolute correct. Okay? Because any wrong information may lead to insensitivity. So the evaluator who will evaluate your answer, they don't appreciate it. Now, as I told you that, first of all, I will discuss with you all people this topic. And I have all of this study material with me. I have prepared for you people. I'll be also sharing with you this study material separately. So my study materials are very concise. That means I have tried to give only the relevant informations that is required for your exam point of view. And rest of the things I have just omitted. So you can also follow these study materials. That will be helpful for your mains examinations answer writing. And the content itself is only relevant for the mains examinations answer writing. Okay. So maximum students, they have these problems on how to write an answer if the question comes, especially IR is concerned. So we will learn, today's my approach would be specifically on answer writing, especially for the mains examinations, and how to write an answer if this is. So what is your syllabus in foreign policy? And I have gathered this syllabus as per my understanding of last 5 to 10 years of question paper. Most questions are coming from this area. Okay. And we are also going to cover these 14-15 topics of this area. Now, first topic, we are going to talk about Panchsheel. First topic, we'll be talking about Panchsheel. Any idea what is Panchsheel? Anybody who has any idea what is Panchsheel?
So it's 5 principles, sir. Those nations after the World War who don't want to join two major world powers, they formed Panchsheel, sir.
Any other answer? Mr.
Bas-
Ranjan? Yes. Mr. Tarai, please.
Basically, it is a treaty between India and China in 1915.
Hmm.
It depends upon 5 principles, so that we call that Panchsheel.
Okay. Many of you
Sir,
might not know.
Jawaharlal Nehru passed the Panchsheel Rajinama and in 1954 with the relation of the China and India.
Yes, sir. It is the idea of Jawaharlal Nehru, and mm, these are like I just forget.
No, okay. I really appreciate all of you, those who have also sent messages and those who have told about Panchsheel. Understand. In your answer writing, what is important is to write the core principles of any policy. Remember, especially in your main examinations, what happens? They look the content, that whether have you written that important policies or core principles or not. They don't mind if you forget to write answer that on which year the Panchsheel agreement has been signed, not important. If you can remember, that is good. But what answer they are looking? They are looking at the answer. If it is Panchsheel, what are those 5 principles that you have to write and explain? Okay. Now let us understand about the Panchsheel agreement related to its aspects. And before that, I will just briefly talk about Prime Minister Modi's foreign policy currently, because it is important. You have to understand this. And that is also many of the students, they complain that, sir, the day when Prime Minister Modi came to power and the current affairs notes has been enlarged. That means you have to study more topic of related to IR because he keeps on visiting many countries. Okay, anyways. So first of all, Prime Minister Modi's foreign policy objectives, what are the objectives? Number one is neighborhood first. That means priority is to improve relation with the immediate neighbors. Who are the immediate neighbors? Nepal, Pakistan, China, Myanmar, Bangladesh, etc. Okay?
7 countries, or we can say.
Yes. So the immediate neighbors, the first objective of Prime Minister Modi is to maintain a very good relation with the immediate neighbor countries. That means the countries which are bordering with India. Next is the concept of para diplomacy. What do you mean by para diplomacy? Normally what happens, you know that the Ministry of External Affairs, that is the foreign ministry, basically in general language we talk about foreign ministry, but in technical language it is Ministry of External Affairs. So only the Ministry of External Affairs and the PMO, these are the two important institutions under the government of India who has the power and responsibility and duty to maintain the foreign policy, and no other department, no other organization. So, and also it is the responsibility of the central government, that is union government, and the power is also lies on the union government. You can see in India we have 3 lists: union list, state list, and concurrent list. And the foreign policy comes under union list. Okay, that means state do not have any power related to the foreign policy. This is clear. Now, what Narendra Modi is trying to promote, Narendra Modi is giving bit of freedom to the respective states to form and engage with their neighboring countries, or to engage with extended neighboring countries. For example, now because of this Look East policy and Act East policy, as you might know, that the Northeast region is important to connect with Myanmar and Bangladesh and etc. So interestingly, there are certain steps taken by the government of Assam in the formation towards this particular Act East policy. So they are allowed, they have been given certain degree of freedom, not fully, but certain degree of freedom to basically promote and maintain relation with their counterpart other countries. Remember, foreign policy lies with central government only, state government do not have power. But Narendra Modi wants to promote, Narendra Modi wants to engage the state government to the foreign countries on, and Narendra Modi wants to give that particular freedom. That is also one of the reason, one of the example which I will be giving you. Recently, you might have seen the vaccine procurement. When it comes of vaccine procurements, like for example, a lot of state government has told that no, we should be also getting freedom so that we can purchase vaccine from global manufacturers, not only from India but also from outside we can purchase. Now, Modi, what he did, he also allowed these states to order from the global vaccine manufacturers, like for example, Moderna and etc. But what is the problem happened because of this vaccine? Now, once again, what happened after I think 1 month or so, once again the vaccine procurement has been centralized. That means the center will be responsible to purchase vaccine, and the center will only distribute the vaccine. There will be no state government's interference in terms of vaccination. But previously, when Narendra Modi allowed these state governments to directly engage with the foreign countries to procure the vaccine, what was the problem happening? The problem happening in both the sides. Number one, the state governments, they do not have that much of resources and capacity to engage with the foreign countries, number one. Number two problem, those foreign countries, especially the big manufacturing countries like Moderna from the the US vaccinations or maybe the Oxford, etc. They don't want to engage with the state. They want to engage only with the central government. They have their own policy. So this is the major reason why the state government's vaccination policy was not successful. That means what? Narendra Modi wants to promote that yes, basically the state government also needs to have certain degree of freedom to engage with external foreign countries. Then there also bilateral trade will dominate the relation with most countries except few important global powers with which India shares a strategic partnership. That means Narendra Modi wants to promote more bilateral trade. That means import and export. And especially Narendra Modi wants to also promote more export and less import. So that is how when the Narendra Modi came in power, all of his policies are synchronized. Make in India policy is synchronized with foreign policy as well. Through the Make in India, Narendra Modi is inviting that more foreign policy. When what is the purpose of Modi visiting so many countries? So that the big companies of those foreign countries, they can come to India and they can establish their particular their establishment through FDI, foreign direct investment. I hope in the economics you are clear about what is FDI, what is FII, what is foreign portfolio investment, okay, what is foreign strategical investment, what is FQI, foreign qualified investors. So those terms are economical terms. Mostly what happens, we have seen it is FDI, foreign direct investment, where what happens in foreign direct investment? In terms of FDI, there are two benefits. Number one, that money will come to India. And number two, the technology will come to India. And number three, the managerial skills will also come to India. So that is the reason why FDI is much more beneficial for India compared to FPI or FII. These are the economics topics. I think you can learn in economics subject separately. I'm just giving you a highlight to make you understand. So this is what is Prime Minister Narendra Modi's vision related to the India's foreign policy. That means what you have to FPI, hot money of HNI, okay, foreign portfolio investors, that is basically for the stock markets and the portfolio companies, that is a separate one. Now, why I'm giving you this particular Prime Minister Modi's foreign policy and the objective? The reason I'm giving you, because whenever any question comes, this will help you to write the conclusion. If you don't know any conclusion, at least you can quote that in order to realize Narendra Modi's vision to achieve his points. This is important. Lookist policy is important. Actist policy is important. Lookist policy is important. So if you don't know how to write the conclusion, at least you can quote these points in your concluding remarks. That will be also, it's like you can say patchwork. If you don't know anything, you can at least put some points that according to realize Narendra Modi's vision or to fulfill Narendra Modi's foreign policy vision, this is important and this has to be taken care of. Okay. So as we understand what is Panchsheel, what is Narendra Modi's foreign policy, let us come to understand what is exactly Panchsheel. I have also given you one of the picture. Many of the students who have also told that Panchsheel agreement is primarily between the India and China, but let me clarify this point. Remember, it was not specifically between the India and China counterpart. The China counterpart was not the Republic of China, especially it was related to Tibet. Okay, I hope this is clear. So it was related to the Tibet because the Premier Zhou Enlai was also representing China on behalf of the Tibet. So the Panchsheel agreement, I will tell you why all of you have told that it is between the India and China, because at the later stage, Panchsheel became a global phenomenon. That is the reason why you are telling that India and China. But initially, when the Panchsheel agreement started, a joint agreement on June 28, 1954, that has started between the India and China, but what counterpart? Tibetan counterpart of China. Okay, and basically the framework is for what? The framework is for relations between the two countries. Two countries, as I told, Tibet, specifically for the Tibet, but in general for the China, so that a solid foundation could be laid for peace and security of the world. That is the Panchsheel agreement. First of all, understand, if the question comes in your mains examinations about the Panchsheel, first of all, write about this. What do you write? How do you write? You write about the Premier Zhou Enlai to India. He and the Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, they have issued a joint statement related to the vision of Panchsheel as the framework. Understand? Panchsheel is a framework. What do you mean by framework? A framework means there are certain points based on which foreign policy will be depending. Okay, that means, like for example, how can you prepare for civil services mains exam? You make a framework, you make a plan, you make a strategy. You say that I have 40 days, 50 days, and how can I complete all of the syllabus in 40 days or 50 days. So similarly, Panchsheel is nothing but a framework for the foreign policy. This much is clear, all of you? Just raise your hand if you have understood this much. Or if
Yes,
anybody
sir.
is having any doubt.
So it's clear.
Clear. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Very nice. Now, as we understand about the Panchsheel, which is the foundation. Foundation means what? Foundation, as I told, that foundation has to be strong so that this India and the China relation can act as catalyst, can act as one of the example for the foreign relations of other nations. Now, going forward, related to Panchsheel, first of all, what are the agreements of the Panchsheel? The 5 principles of Panchsheel which you have to understand and you have to write. So in your examinations, you have to write about these 5 principles. What are the five principles? Number 1, mutual respect for each other's territory, integrity, and sovereignty. Okay, this is the principle number 1. That means India will, and also the China, we have created a framework, and we are also expecting that other countries should adopt our Panchsheel framework. Okay. So what is the Panchsheel? Panchsheel was basically mutual first principle or first agreement, you can say, of Panch. Panch means what? P-A-N-C-A. Panch means 5. Okay. Seal means principles. So Panch means 5. So what are the 5 principles? Mutual respect for each other's territorial integrity and sovereignty. Okay. All of you know what is territorial integrity. That means within our boundary, we should not try to influence. What is sovereignty? Sovereignty means either internal sovereignty or external sovereignty. One country should not interfere with another in terms of either internal sovereignty or external sovereignty. Next one is mutual non-aggression. What do you mean by non-aggression? Like, for example, what is happening currently in the India and Pakistan border, it is aggression. Aggression means what happens? They fire, they do the ceasefire, okay? And other nations also, like for example, Pakistan is ceasefiring, India is also ceasefiring. After certain days, once again it starts. Currently, it is being started. The India and China in between their relations. No, they try to provoke. China every time they try to provoke. Pakistan is being provoking, and due to which many of our soldiers they have been sacrificed their life to protect our motherland. Similarly, mutual non-interference. That means we should not interfere between each other. Any country should not interfere. That means what is happening? For example, India and China. India should not interfere in Chinese matters, and China should not interfere in India's matter. Let me give you one example. Now, recently, as the Vice President of India has visited Arunachal Pradesh, the Chinese counterpart has commented that the visit of the head of the nation is not in the interest of the peaceful of a particular region. That means what is happening? China is no doubt is interfering into our internal affairs. So there is a from our point of view, the spokesperson from the Ministry of External Affairs has suggested, the spokesperson of our Ministry of External Affairs has suggested that the statement given by Chinese counterpart was basically not in light of the healthy relations. So that means what you are understanding. By default, what is happening? There is an aggression happens from China, and we react to that particular aggression. That means you can say, sir, is Panchsheel basically being followed? Answer is no. If Panchsheel, we have agreed that we should follow Panchsheel, but it is no longer being followed. Then equality and mutual benefit, whatever we do, either in terms of economics, either in terms of strategy, either in terms of trade, either in terms of people-to-people participation or government-to-people participation, we should do based on mutual benefit. And finally, the last 5 principle is peaceful coexistence. We should always try to make a peaceful coexistence. That will be the ultimate goal. So please remember, as I told, that whenever the Panchsheel comes, what you know or what you don't know, you must know these 5 principles. What are the principles? Mutual respect. Once again, I'm repeating. Mutual respect for each other's territorial integrity and sovereignty. Mutual non-aggression. Mutual non-interference. Equality and mutual benefit. And peaceful coexistence. So these are the 5 principles. As I tell you that if you don't remember anything in your exam, but if you can explain these 5 principles, then it will be sufficient for your examinations also. Okay. Now, what happened interestingly, this 5 principle, as I told that it started with, in the beginning, it started as in between the India and China. But later stage, what happened, that it became the basis for any bilateral and multilateral relations. How? If you look into today's particular engagement, like for example, if you look into the philosophy of SARC, if you look into the philosophy of United Nations, if you look into the philosophy of any European nations, or any Quad countries, or any relations, or RCEC, or maybe BIMSTEC, or anything, any bilateral relations, or maybe multilateral relations, you may find that all of these points are also there covering. So you can say that Panchsheel became a guiding light. Panchsheel became a guiding light for the future foreign policy. For the future foreign policy. Okay. So that means what you should write. For example, somebody is asking is it relevant today? Answer is yes, it is still relevant today. I will give you what you should write. I will give you, don't worry, conclusion also I will give you. I'll tell you how to write how to frame the answer and how to write it. So for the time being, are you clear, all of you, that if the question comes on Panchsheel, any question comes on Panchsheel, either directly or indirectly, you should never forget to write these 5 principles. You should always write down this 5 principles and try to explain into 2-3 sentences. That's it. If you can do it, you will be getting a good mark into that. But if you cannot write this 5 principles, then there is a problem. And remember, do not try to alter the words. Like for example, if it is written as mutual non-aggression, you write something else. Basically, you are also expressing the same thing. But this information, this content should not be modified. Do not try to modify this content, because these are the real agreement in the concept. Do not give your own words. Own words you give when you explain what do you mean by mutual non-aggression. When you give explanation, then you can modify and you can write in your own original language. But at least these 5 principles should be printed. Now let me know if you have any questions. Somebody is asking, are these principles being followed in true sense? Please wait for some time. I will answer this question by the end of this topic. Why Nehru introduced this policy with China? Why not with other countries? Because if you try and understand the importance of China, when India became independent, we did not have very good relation with Pakistan. And as per the Kautilya's theory, you know, I don't know whether you know about Kautilya's theory or not. I mean, that's a part of the PSR optional. So as per the Kautilya's theory, they also always suggest that you should always maintain good relation with the counterpart of your enemies. So that means if you can say that Pakistan is our enemy, so Pakistan's neighbor is China, we should maintain good relation with China. That is one factor. Another factor is that China itself is you can say a neighboring country to India. So we have to maintain a good relation. Number 2. Number 3 reason, that if you look into the region, if you can imagine the region of this particular, where you have the South Asian region, okay, in this particular South Asian region, China, the size of the China is so big, and during the time also, China has played, like during the time of independence, both India and China has started from the same base. They were also being trashed by Japan and those imperial forces. We were also trashed by the Britishers. So we were also, both of us, we started together. But in reality, China, Nehru knew that the Chinese manufacturing sectors and Chinese policies are so strong, and they are going to be global power in coming days. So that was the forecast which Nehru did. And that is one of the biggest reasons why Nehru started engaging with China. And that doesn't mean that Nehru did not wanted to engage with Bangladesh or other countries, because Nehru already knew during that time there was no Bangladesh. It was like East Pakistan and West Pakistan. And other countries like Myanmar, Nepal, they were very small countries. So that probably that could be the mentality why Nehru first started to engage in good way with China. And also the Tibetan interest, the Buddhism, the spread of Buddhism is another reason. The Tibetan interest is another reason. And if you look into the border, China shares a lot of border with India, starting from the Himalaya, then to the northeastern region, especially the Arunachal Pradesh. So if you don't maintain a good relation with this much of capability of big country, then we are the one who is going to be in the problem later on. Probably that would be the one of the reason why Nehru started engaging with China in the first part, then might have later on thought about the other countries. Any other question from any of you? Response is clear, all of you? Just let me know so that I can move forward.
Clear, sir.
Yes, sir. Clear.
Sir, please repeat
Yes,
the
sir.
non-aggression.
Yes, sir.
Hello?
Sir, what is mutual non-aggression?
Hello?
Okay. Those who are speaking, please raise your hand because there are many students I am not able to understand who is speaking. Please raise your hand and ask. Yes. Jajati, please. What is your question?
Sir, what is mutual non-aggression?
Okay. Do you understand what is aggression?
No, sir.
Okay. Have you heard about the इतना aggressive क्यों होते हो? Are you understanding this statement? आप इतना
Yes,
aggressive
sir.
क्यों होते हो? What do you understand by aggressiveness?
सर जैसे एग्रेसिव होकर जैसे क्रिकेट खेलते हैं वैसे सर थोड़ा एग्रेसिव मतलब थोड़ा अटैकिंग मोड.
Yes, aggressive का गुस्सा and aggressive are different. Gussa is basically different. Aggressiveness मतलब what is the aggressiveness? Aggressiveness means you are holding something as a type of revenge, and you are trying. Like for example, aggressiveness may lead to violent. मतलब जब झगड़ा होती है उसका पहला वाला जो स्टेज है उसको बोलते हैं aggressiveness. The before stage of the fight is aggressiveness. तो यहाँ पे मैंने आपको क्या बताया, दो एग्जांपल मैंने दिया. So I told you that between India and China, normally what happens in 1962 there was a war, but before 1962 there was many aggressive movements. Like for example, Chinese will come. Like what is happening with Arunachal Pradesh? I don't know. When I'll teach you about the India and China separately, you will realize that basically in Arunachal Pradesh, suppose for example, this is the Indian territory and this is the Chinese territory. The Chinese military will come up to this level. Okay, they will provoke Indians, and Indians will say that means Indian counterpart will say that you China, you stop there. Why are you coming to our territory? Again, they won't do anything. They will come back. So it's simply provocating aggressions. What is doing my mutual non-aggression? Mutual non-aggression means both the countries, India will not show any kind of aggression. Counterpart also will not show any kind of aggression. Okay, now in international relations, basically what happens, as per the United Nations Treaty, please wait. As per the United Nations Treaty, if you, for example, if there is some verbal argument between any two counterparts, let's say India and China, for example, Indian soldiers with Chinese soldiers, as per the United Nations Treaty, you cannot use gun. Okay, if you use gun, then it will be treated as a war. Okay, that means you can say that, sir, how the fighting will happen. Basically, that is what is the objective, that you should not fight. Once you pick up the gun, it will be treated as a war against the counterpart. So what is mutual non-aggression? Mutual non-aggression means we should not do anything that will provocate another country. We should not show any kind of aggression or any kind of aggressiveness that will provoke the counterpart. Okay, Jajati, clear?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Dharanidhar, please ask your question.
Sir, what is peaceful coexistence?
Peaceful coexistence means you don't fight with us, we will not fight with you. Simple.
If one country is attack on another, suppose China is attack on another country, then can it is on mutual non-interference or anything else? Means India can interfere or not in this part?
Okay. See, can India interfere or not? That depends on India. Like for example, what has happened in Afghanistan crisis currently, when Taliban has taken over Kabul. Basically, what happened? They also killed many soldiers of US. US has withdrawn their forces. But on the other side, you might be knowing that Taliban gets support from Gulf countries, especially UAE, and also Taliban got support from Pakistan. And in reality, Russia also is supporting with to Taliban. But India has good friend with Russia. India never said to Russia that you should not support Taliban. Basically, it depends on the country whether they want to involve or they don't want to involve. But there was a statement by Prime Minister Modi in the United Nations General Assembly address. Narendra Modi has told that we are peacefully observing the status, but at the same time we will urge that Taliban land, that is Afghanistan land, should not be used for any kind of terrorist activities. There is just only simple statement by Narendra Modi, but remaining time, our Ministry of External Affairs has said that we are observing. We are observing means what? We are not interfering what is happening. Or we don't know when we are going to interfere or whether we will interfere or not. That will be depending on the Prime Minister's office and the Ministry of External Affairs. Okay? Clear, Siddharth?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, another example of interference, I will tell you that, for example, whenever whatever happens, what happens? USA makes a statement. Any part of the world, there is a statement in PSR optional. We always political science optional. We say that when US sneeze, the entire world catches cold. Sneeze मतलब क्या बोलते हैं? छींकना. When US sneeze, the entire world catches cold. So there is a statement in PSR, interestingly, and but what happens in USA? Wherever whatever happens, USA always try to interfere. So this is one example of interference. But in India, this is non-interference, but it depends. Okay, all right, clear all of you? ठीक है. Now आगे बढ़ते हैं. Let us move forward and try to understand. Now, how can you maintain a continuity in your answer? First of all, what did I tell you? First of all, you should write. Okay, first of all, you should write about this point. These are the points. You write brief about introduction. What is the introduction? This is the introduction. This is your intro. This is your introduction. Then you start your body part from here. You start explaining about in 2 to 3 sentences. Next, you maintain a continuity. Remember, I always tell you people that presentation, you have to understand the skill of answer writing. It is not only writing the information, but if the information is not written on sequence wise, then it may create problem. If you write haphazardly, then you may not get a good impression. So after that, what happens? Once you wrote this particular thing, then how do you write? You write that currently the Panchsheel, that means Panchsheel agreement, has been a foundation, and that became an ideology for the future foreign policy. Now you try to explain how is that become a foundation. So here what I have written, the Panchsheel, which was incorporated into 10 principles of international peace and cooperation declaration issued by 1955 in Bottom Conference. There is also Bottom 10 principles. That is not important for you people. That is the reason I have not written in detail. But in the notes, I have written separately. You can just read it. So conference on 29 Afro-Asian countries. That means what is happening? That the Panchsheel principles was so popular, it was admired by other countries as well. The universal relevance, this is the importance. The universal relevance of Panchsheel was emphasized when its tenets were incorporated into a resolution on peaceful coexistence presented by India, Yugoslavia, Sweden, unanimously adopted in 1957 by United Nations General Assembly. That means what is happening? First, in the beginning stage, the Panchsheel agreement was provided between India and China, and that became the foundation stone. Okay, that became the basis of ideology for the future reference. And the success of the Panchsheel, what we can see, where is the success? The event what has happened, in the United Nations General Assembly, based on the principles of Panchsheel, we have signed the particular, the resolution is being adopted by the United Nations General Assembly. that is peaceful coexistence, and the main presenters were India, Yugoslavia, and Sweden. So these are the countries who basically presented, they were the main promoters of the resolution on the peaceful coexistence of the basically between the countries. So that means you can write down, suppose this particular part, if the question is asking you that how Panchsheel is relevant, this is the relevance of Panchsheel. This is the relevance. That whether and how relevance is Panchsheel. Was Panchsheel successful? Answer is yes. Yes, Panchsheel was successful. Because of that only, United Nations General Assembly has adopted. This one is clear, all of you? Just let me know, raise your hand if you have understood this concept topic. Okay. ठीक है. Okay. Now those who are first timers, are you understanding, all of you? Those who told me that sir it is beginning, today is your first class, are you understanding?
Yes, sir.
Now, so in the body part you have written this. In the before the conclusion, that means before conclusion, what you should write? Before the conclusion, you should write about what is the, again, you need to the articulation. This is called as articulation. In the answer writing, what are the phases? First phase is introduction. First is introduction, intro, body, conclusion. And there has to be, the conclusion has to be relevant to introduction. And this is what is called as articulation. Articulation means don't be Abhimanyu. Okay? All of you know Abhimanyu knew how to enter, but didn't know how to exit. So don't be Abhimanyu. You should know how to also exit from that particular flow of answer. So before conclusion, what you should write? You should write that the relevance of Panchsheel is based on its form, root, cultural traditions of its originator. That means India and China, who are originator of Panchsheel, they have deeply rooted cultural ties. All of you know that Buddhism is one of the main reasons. And also, like for example, Dalai Lama, Tibetan issue, what was happened between India and China. Before that, we had a strong interest. So it is good. The spread of Buddhism in China laid the historical basis for the formulation of Panchsheel by India and China. So you should mention about it. The timeless relevance Panchsheel, yeah. Next is the conclusion. That is before the conclusion, you should write. And during the conclusion, however, how should you write the conclusion? Let me just, don't worry, if it is not visible to you, I have prepared the notes and forward to you. So however, in the today's world, it is not enough that to promote it as an alternative ideology that empowers the less developed. It should be made clear that Panchsheel is an ideology for the entire world and is as relevant to the developed countries of the globe as it is to the less developed. Look at the language through which you should write the international relations. Remember, every subject has a way of writing. Every subject has its own language. International relations has its own language. If you can use certain words which are only related to the international relations, then your answer would look much more better. So how should you write down? Again, in the international relations, you cannot be biased. Number one principle of international relations, as far as your answer writing is concerned, you should write only the government of India's point of view. Clear? Never write against government of India's point of view. If you try to write against government of India, then probably it will look like you are too much of biased. So try to always write what government of India is saying. Yes, you can give certain suggestions. Like for example, here what has happened? Before the time, Panchsheel, like India was underdeveloped country during the time of 1950s. China was also underdeveloped country, and the Yugoslavia and Sweden and other countries, those who have slowly adapted, because India was also advocating of the NAM. And later on, when I teach you the topic of NAM, non-aligned movement, you will realize that the Panchsheel became the basis of the non-aligned movement also. There is a connection between Panchsheel and the NAM. So that means the Panchsheel by the developed countries. Who are the developed countries? USA, UK, Germany. So they are like developed countries. So the developed countries has always seen Panchsheel is nothing but the concept of the underdeveloped countries like India, Africa, and etc. So in the conclusion, we should write that it is not enough that Panchsheel is promoted only among the underdeveloped countries. It should be made it clear that Panchsheel is as relevant as also for the developed countries. And what should be stressed today is the principle of Panchsheel are not just empowering principles, they are also guiding principles that enshrines a certain code of behavior. Their essence is non-use of power, the approach is tolerance. This is important. This statement, this one, what I have written here, what I'm writing, that the essence is non-use of power. Between international relations, what happens? Always we have seen that the countries try to use power, maybe the power in terms of diplomacy, maybe the power in terms of military. But here what you are writing, that as a part of the conclusion, you should write the Panchsheel is not only, it doesn't promote the power, rather it teaches us that how to be more tolerant and of living one's life, learning from one other without interfering or being interfered with. If you can write in these sentences, your answer writing will be much more impactful. And finally, it may not be out of place in a world searching for moral certainties to emphasize this message of Panchsheel. That means, if the question comes that is Panchsheel relevant today, answer is yes. But how do you answer? Again, I'm telling you, in international relations, you do not say either yes or no. Never say that yes, Panchsheel is important. Do not write this statement. Instead of saying yes, you write in a very beautiful diplomatic way. And what is that beautiful diplomatic way? This is what you should write. Number one point, this is number one point, what you are writing, that Panchsheel is not only the basis of the underdeveloped countries, but it should be made it clear that it is as relevant as also for the developed countries. Next, we should learn from the Panchsheel that how to not use power, but how to be more tolerant, how to maintain the independency without interfering, without being interfered. And Panchsheel guides the future foreign policies. That's it. If you look into the sentences, it is a perfect answer for your question in your mains examination. So again, once again, repeating the topic, what did I tell you? First, introduction, then body part, mutual respect. These are the 5 principles of body part. Then before the conclusion, you should write it. Then conclusion. That's it. Clear, all of you? Let me know. We are this Panchsheel topic is completed. Any person having any doubt, please ask. Yes. Clear? Okay. Is it clear?
Clear, sir.
Falguni, Ananya, Vanita,
Clear, sir.
Shobhan Kumar, Shobhan Panda, clear?
Clear,
Sujit
sir.
Kumar, clear? Sudhanshu? Okay, okay. Thank you. Now, this topic is we have understood. So, I hope that all of you are confident now to answer what is Panchsheel. And as I told you that these are some of the common topics. Whatever topics I am going to teach are most common topics, and the probability is more in terms of the examination. Next topic, let us choose. What is our next topic? Is non-aligned movement, NAM. Okay. Now, NAM, non-aligned movement. As I told you that I am not going to waste your time. I'll be speaking to the point. What is important and what is not. And unnecessary informations are not important. Unnecessary pictures are not important. That is the reason in the slides I have not given the pictures also. Wherever it is relevant, I have given, otherwise not. Now, what is a non-aligned movement? Now, if I may ask you a simple question to all of you, can you tell me what are you going to write if the question comes that discuss non-aligned movement, and do you think that is it relevant today? Or let me frame a question. The question would be, what is NAM? Discuss its relevance considering changing global politics or world order. Anything. Okay. Suppose this is the main question. That what is NAM? Discuss its relevance considering changing global politics or world order. Or else there could be another question. What is NAM? And discuss India's current position. Okay, this could be the question related to NAM. What did I tell you? These are the two important questions. Anyways, as I told you, the answer would be almost same. Question might be different. One is, what is NAM? Discuss its relevance considering changing global politics or changing world order. Another question could be, discuss India's current position and what is NAM. Now, can anyone please tell me what you will write in introduction? How can you introduce this answer? What is NAM? What is non-aligned movement? Anyone who want to answer?
Sir, I think it can be discussed on the behalf of like US and USSR, and another was NAM. Basically, the capitalist countries were with USA, and the socialist country, communist country, were with USSR, like that. And the country who are in between, or who was in mutual agreement, they remained as NAM.
And yes, Sumit.
So after the end of Second World War, when two major world power formed, so after that they want to incorporate more and more nation to their own side to spread their capitalism and Marxism.
Okay.
So, in order to prevent this, these NAM countries formed. So they followed principle like, we will not follow any these two major blocks. We will maintain our own sovereignty. By that, we can progress our country in the same pace. So this is, I think, non-aligned movement.
Okay, very good. And anybody else who, Rohan, would you like to add something?
Sir, after chronologically, after the Cold War and then the Indian independence, the developing countries basically did not want to follow any of the power bloc, did not want to join any of the two power blocks, because they didn't have enough resources and they were at this stage of developing. So they found it essential to not join any of the power bloc, and they must maintain a diplomatic relation with the both two superpowers. So they formed the NAM.
Yes, anybody else who would like to say?
Sir, hello.
Yes, Solomon, listen.
Sir, as for India's concern, India never formed an alliance with any country, sir. In today's scenario, as for the China's growing power, we look at the consequences, and we should follow alliance with any neighboring country, sir, like maritime country, sir, Sri Lanka, and sir, Laos. Any countries are uh, to counter the dominance of China. We should follow an alliance, sir, as per today's scenario.
And I think somebody has messaged with the rise of new Cold War between US and mistrust. Okay. Thank you, all of you. I think all of you have given good answers related to the non-aligned movement. So I will try to make it concise. Whatever your thoughts process are, I think that you know some of the points. So I would be basically organizing your thoughts, because in the answer writing, again, I'm telling you what you know. If you don't know how to express, that is going to be a problem. So you should know the content, you should have the knowledge, as long as also you should try to understand how to frame the answer. Okay. Now let us understand. I'm just giving you a background of the lab so that it will be easier for you to understand what you should write. Now, what is the background of non-aligned movement? If you look into the World War II, and basically after the World War II, there is a growing differences between the US and Soviet Russia, that is USSR. And one of the, there are many reasons, by the way. One of the reason of the growing mistrust, or one of the reason of growing friction or growing conflict or growing differences between these two countries was basically the ideology. That means you can say that after World War II, it was basically the US and the Soviet Russia had many ideological differences. Now, you no need to write in detail about what are those ideological differences. You can just introduce that the USA was based on capitalistic and the Soviet Russia was basically based on socialistic. So this much is information is sufficient. You no need to explain what is capitalism, what is socialism. That is not necessary. Why? Because the question is not about to explain what is socialism. Question is about non-aligned movement. So when the distress is happening, and once again, you no need to explain in detail about the Cold War. Why? Because the question once again is not about Cold War. Question is about non-aligned movement. So you should always stick to the point of non-aligned movement. Now here what you should write in terms of the background of non-aligned movement, when the Cold War started. What is the Cold War? Cold War means after the World War II, it was felt like war. It was expected to have a war. Basically, if you recall the world history, there was a Cuban Missile Crisis. And the Cuban Missile Crisis was a turning point. And there was a high chance of nuclear war between the US and the USSR. But later stage, what has happened? After the, you can say about the fall of the Berlin Wall, so the USSR also got disintegrated. Okay, there are many reasons of disintegration of USSR. We are not talking about what are the reasons now, because that is not our topic. So when the USSR disintegrated, you can say that earlier what used to happen, there were two superpowers. One is USA, another one is USSR. But when during the time of 1990s, when USSR disintegrated, now there is only one superpower. Clear? So this is the context. Now, in that particular story, where India is fitting, where does India fits? Now, India wanted to create its own position, because I don't know how many of you know Nehru, about his stories. If you try to learn about Nehru's ideology, personal ideology, he wanted to have that position among the entire world leaders. And that is one of the reasons that India is just born in 1947. And the Cold War already started during that time. And when the Cold War started, number one reason that India, for the first time, India had bigger plans. Like, for example, Nehru started creating these 5-year plans, first 5 year, second 5 year, third 5 year plan. And we as a country, we did not fit into the equation, into the dynamics of the friction between the USA and USSR. So we decided, if we are going to favor USA, then USSR will be unhappy. If we are going to favor the USSR, then USA will be unhappy. We knew that USA is one of the important members, but at the same time, we also knew that USSR is a part of our Asian continent, and having a good relation with an Asian continent, a country within that Asia, is much more important. But at the same time, we also knew that if we don't maintain good relations with USA, then that is also going to cause a problem in near future. So what is the solution? The solution is to remain neutral. And how can you remain neutral? You cannot remain neutral by keeping silent. Why? Because USA made it clear. USA made it very clear statement that you, India, if you cannot support us, that means you are against us. That means basically India cannot alone be silent. India needed support. And what kind of support? That we want to be neutral, and that is how we want to create another bloc. We want to create our own goal. So if you remember during the Cold War, if you have studied the Cold War or if you have not studied, don't worry. In your respective classes also, I am going to take up this international relations chapter. Separately, I will discuss about it. If you understand the Cold War, that when the USA and the USSR, basically after World War II, USA emerged as superpower. And USSR also emerged as another power. So USA tried to create a group, tried to create a bloc. Bloc in a technical language, in the higher language, it is called as bloc. So when USA tried to create a bloc, basically you can say the Western European countries, most of the Western European countries, they were favoring USA because they are also into the same mindset. And in reality, USA also has supported strategically, military and economically to the most of the Western countries, especially the UK. One of the reasons for UK to leave India is because of the economical crisis in UK, as well as there is an advice from the USA president that you should basically do not colonize, you should leave the colonized country as their own and they should get the independence. That was one of the criteria between America and UK based on which UK got economical assistance. Okay, these are some deep understandings, but I'm just giving you a picture so that you have certain degrees of background so that you can write your answers on your own even if you do not remember these things. On the other side, what happened? In the USSR types, many of the USSR countries and especially the supporting members of the USSR, they also try to create a bloc. Now, in the two blocs, you can understand currently that these two blocks both are, one is developed countries, USA and the Western European countries, they were more developed. USSR, China, they are developing countries and the ideology is more towards the socialism. Where is India is fitting? India is not fitting to USA. It is also not fitting to USSR. So India has tried to remain silent, and to remain silent, you also need support. You cannot remain silent, otherwise they will outreach you. So you needed support. And how can we get support? By creating a movement. Remember, it was a movement. What is the movement? It is the movement for the people of the third world countries. Who are the third world countries? The South Asian countries, Latin American countries, and African countries. And when India got independence in 1947, India became one of the example. India became one of the example for all those countries who were colonized during that time. And as India became again the example that yes, we have fought for our independence and now we are independent finally. So that propagation has been reaching to the third world countries, especially African and Latin American countries. And they liked it. Because when India presented, when Nehru is one of the founding member, India is one of the founding member of NAM, and they liked it. Okay, and when they liked it, they started supporting India also. So that means in your examinations, what you should write during the NAM, you should not write in detail when NAM is formed, who has formed, those are not necessary. Remember, what is the question? Question is simple, is about explain what is NAM. Question is not about when NAM started, what has happened earlier, Cold War, etc. Not necessary. I am just explaining so that you have to have an understanding of context. Because in order to understand international relations, if you remember bit of world history, then it is also beneficial. So here what is happening, first point is that the non-aligned movement, it was created and founded during the collapse of colonial system, as I told, 1947. And the independence struggles of the people of Africa, Asia, Latin America, and other regions of the world, and the height of the Cold War. That means the Cold War has already started. It was already peaking a movement, and finally, the non-aligned movement was created during that particular time period. That means you can understand that NAM was created with so much of struggle that basically we were confused that we cannot join USA, we cannot join USSR because we are not in position. We were suffering from hunger, we were suffering from poverty, we didn't have any industrial progress. We didn't. We were having a lot of food crisis. We had our own problem, and India got independence. First of all, the first priority is to take care of our home. The first priority is to maintain an order within our country. Then only we can think of whether we should support USA or support USSR. So this was basically the important parameter of the understanding, the context based on which the NAM was formed. Next is during the early days of the movement, its actions were the key factor of decolonization. I told you that India became the example for the countries who were colonized. And as India became the example, other colonies also they started decolonizing and they started understanding that if India can get independent, we also can get independent. Throughout its history, the movement of non-aligned countries has played a fundamental role in preservation of world peace and security. Just remember, if India could have joined during that time either with USA or with Russia, probably today we would have in a different position. So during that time when Nehru decided to remain neutral, then that was probably one of the best decisions we have made as to prevent any future war. The bonding Asian African Conference is the most immediate attendance of the creation of non-aligned movement. Remember the bonding Asian African Conference? I told you during the Panchsheel agreement, I told you that Panchsheel was one of the founding principle of the NAM. The conference held on bonding 1955 gathered 29 heads of the states belonging to the first post-colonial generations of leaders and from the two continents with aim of identifying, assessing world issues at the time of pursuing joint goals. That means what happened? During the bonding conferences, when the Panchsheel was basically adopted, they were formally accepted, recognized the African countries as well as the Asian countries. That was basically the principle, the foundation background based on which the NAM stood. And if had it been the case that Panchsheel was not agreed, then probably non-aligned movement could not have been possible. Now, next, what we are understanding, the principle that would govern relations among the large and small nations known as the 10 principles of Gordon were proclaimed at that conference. Already, as I told, that 10 principles basically I'm going to give you in the notes. And if you can remember, that is good. If you cannot remember, that's fine also. Just write it down what it has been important points of NAM. The fulfillment of those principles became the essential criteria for non-aligned movement membership. It is what known as quintessence of the movement until early 1990s. That means the principles of the NAM were basically, for example, the primary objectives of NAM based on which it was founded. Number one is to support self-determination. What is a self-determination? India as a country, we have the right to self-determine. That we want our own government. Similarly, the primary objective of the self-determinations is one of the objectives that was also basically widely accepted by many other countries. Next objective is national independence and sovereignty and territorial integrity of states. Third is opposition to the apartheid. Fourth, non-adherence to the multilateral military pacts and the independence of non-aligned countries from great power or bloc influences. Okay, that means basically USA and USSR during that time, they were trying to create a multilateral military pacts. That means military engagement. So basically when you have a military engagement, military agreement only, if it is a political agreement, within that if there is military, that is fine. But if the meeting or the group is only based on, for example, NATO, if you understand NATO, the initial principle based on which NATO was formed was basically India. India tested nuclear weapons and the USA didn't happy. USA was not happy. So USA just called other members, let us form NATO. Okay. So the initial idea of creating NATO was basically to prevent other countries to have the nuclear weapons. Especially it was created with the backdrop of the India having nuclear weapons. The struggle against imperialism in all its forms and manifestations. That means any form of imperialism should be banned. The struggle against colonialism and racism, foreign occupation should be banned. Non-interference into internal affairs. Rejection of the use of threat or use of force, that is also is not allowed. The democratization of international relations should be maintained. Socio-economical development and restructuring of international economic system should be maintained. So basically, whenever the question comes on NAM, just give an introduction. Write down a bit of introduction. Where is that? Yes. Write down a brief of introduction. Then you write down about the important criteria. Then try to explain the objectives. Okay, so explain the objectives, and I told you that most of the objectives are coinciding with the Panchsheel agreement. If you know Panchsheel, if you can explain, and you can add some new points here also. Next is give me a second. Yes, that means finally, how do you conclude? Suppose the question is coming, as I told that, is NAM relevant today? What should be your answer? What should be the conclusion? Yes, anyone? If the question comes, is NAM relevant today? What should be your answer?
Sir, we can start like as from the above discussion, we can clear that the political growing importance and power of USA and USSR, which try to incorporate other nation to their own side. If India, sorry sir, I got forgot sir.
Could you try? And anybody else? Please try. आज के डेट पे नाम relevant है कि नहीं है? What should be the answer? Conclusion क्या लिखना है? Topic तो लिख लिए. You have written the topic. नाम क्या है और what are the major principles of नाम? Objective क्या है? इसके बाद आप क्या लिखोगे? Because आपको conclude करना है. You have to conclude the answer. What should be your conclusion? And conclusion हमेशा क्या होना चाहिए? Constructive, positive होना चाहिए. It cannot be destructive. इसका मतलब अगर आप बोलोगे कि नहीं नाम खराब है, नाम is not good, नाम is not relevant, then probably that is not acceptable. So it should be
Hello,
always
sir.
constructive. Yes.
Hello.
Yes. Who is speaking?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear.
Sir, thing
Hello.
is, you can say that although Cold War, Cold War gone. So, but current scenario, the new Cold War between US and China, and there is a lot of mistrust between in the North-South divide related to equal distribution of vaccine, the issue, and the environment fiasco in COP26, current environment fiasco, where rich and poor are fighting for the, they are not agreeing any particular agreement for the environment. So by seeing that thing, there is all the Cold War is vanished, but there is a lot of new issues which plaguing the world. So we need a instead of any multipolar world, we need a multilateral platform, and so NAM can bring the warring faction for the better good of the environment, better good of the world. So we can, as it has almost a lot of after UN, it is one of the most prominent platform on the basis of a number of countries involved. So if you can bring the Western countries and we can create some synergy, then it will be a good office for the solving the better problem, the biggest problem of the world.
Any other giving any other answer? And any other students wish to speak anything? Understand? So in the conclusion, try to include these points. What are the points? Please try to write down how NAM will benefit in terms of economical factor. You can write that as India has given example of rise in economical growth, India can also support the member countries of NAM to achieve the economical progress. Simple. Climate change, there is a growing, like COP26 recently has happened. India has started a fund that is basically the Island Nation Infrastructure Development Fund. India has been actively playing into the keeping the climate change, and the NAM countries can also play a very crucial role in it. Public health means what is happening, like Zika virus. Recently, this is Corona, and in the Corona, basically the problem is what is happening related to the vaccination. So you can say that the NAM countries can have a better mutual understanding to distribute the vaccine in an equitable manner, and there NAM leaders can play a greater important role. Strategy, peace and security. You can also write down that member countries of the NAM can bring the peace and security and order in the global new world order. So the conclusion should be on these points. Whatever you want to explain, you do it. But if you can write how NAM can be beneficial in future from economical point of view, how NAM can be beneficial from climate change point of view, from public health point of view, from strategy point of view, from peace and security point of view. This is how your answer should be. Or if you want to be a bit of critical, you can say that currently India's engagement has been changing in terms of the NAM, and currently India has been more focused on towards the economical development blocks. However, India can play a greater role. Remember the wording. India can play a greater role in terms of the NAM movement. The NAM, the non-aligned movement is as relevant as it was earlier in terms of it can help the member nations to create a new world good politics, or to basically prosper the member countries. So in that way, nutshell, please try to highlight how NAM will be beneficial from these other point of views. If you can explain in 1 or 2 sentences, that's fine. Complete. Please tell me, all of you have understood, or anybody who is having any doubt, please let me know. Raise your hand if you have understood. Everybody? And the NAM question is most common question. In mains examinations, I have seen maximum time, almost, if I'm not wrong, every year it repeats NAM question. If you can prepare, and the NAM question is not difficult. If you know how to write bit of introduction, then the body part, then principles, explain principles and conclusion. And what you should write in conclusion? Positive. Always positive, constructive. You should be constructive. You should be positive. The NAM, you should show hope. Your answer should show hope that NAM has a greater relevance for future. That means you are showing hope that NAM could be relevant. So always your answer should be creating hope. आगे बढ़ते हैं. Should you go forward, all of you? Clear this topic?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Salman, how to make our impressive answer? Impressive answer is only when you write to the point. Number 1. Number 2, impressive answer is when you do not write in generalistic statement. Just imagine if I write this particular conclusion that NAM is very good, NAM is important, NAM is the future, then this is called a general point. Instead of writing this generalistic word, if you can include some points that considering the COP26, the climate change, as India has been leading by creating the Infrastructure Resilience Development Fund, it basically shows a hope that the NAM nation also can lead. If they are together, they can bring the crisis down. Look at the language. Instead of writing, if you write that NAM is good, NAM is bad, NAM will show hope, that is rubbish. Okay? Impressive answer is only that. There is the X factor. People say that, sir, how can I write a very good answer? You can write good answer if you know the topic. And if you know the topic, please try to stick to the point. Do not bluff. Do not bluff. And if you write, if you don't know the answer, write. Do not just write that I am good, you are bad, you are eating, I am eating. those are general language. Be specific. Then your answer will be much more relevant. So I think we have very less time. Let me complete another important topic.
Can I say question come like instead of non-alignment, can we call all say like all alignment movement or something? Because whether we need to change the thing, because it's saying the name is an acronym and non-alignment, because now everyone is connected due to globalization. Either you are not immune to the any either a pandemic, or you are not immune to the communication issue. So you are like globalized, and they are saying the single village, single world. So instead of whether you change to NAM to AM or something like or an different acronym which stands to like all alignment movement instead of non-alignment. So can a question come like, or what will be if that type of thing comes?
So first of all, there are two things. One is personal opinion. According to personal opinion, that is correct. But if you are asking me, sir, can you write down this all movement in your answer or not? I would suggest that please try to refrain from writing. Please try to avoid from writing those things. The reason is, we are no one to judge. We are no one to give a judgment that whether non-aligned movement is all allied movement or not. If you want to write down, then you must quote an eminent person who might have talked about it. Or if Government of India has said specifically that nowadays non-aligned movement could be called as an all-aligned movement, then only you write. Like for example, Look East policy called as Act East policy. Now the upgrade after 2014, Look East policy is now Act East policy. So there is a statement by Government of India. That is the reason we are saying the Look East policy is Act East policy. Like for example, there is also another statement. Look East policy is during the time of 2012, it was known as Enhanced Look East policy or Look East policy 3.0. Okay, it was basically said by Jacob Menon, the thinker. So if you know some thinker who has said this one, but if Government of India, Ministry of External Affairs, if they have said, then only use it, because unnecessary use of certain words may create. I'm just trying to make you understand that evaluator may not like if you directly talk about your own thoughts. You must justify that why are you saying all aligned movement. If you explained about the globalization and interconnectivity, this is the reason why it should be all aligned movement. Probably you should. It is better if you can quote a person who has said this. Okay, Sushant, clear? Yes. Okay. I'm just trying to make you the mindset of an evaluator. Answer writing should be written, especially IR is sensitive. As I told that IR cannot be, if it is general studies like history, polity, etc., you can put your own thoughts. But in IR, we have to be within the frame of Government of India. Please try to be at least. Okay. Now, let us understand this last topic for today's class. India's nuclear doctrine. This is also the most important and commonly asked question in your exam. I have seen maximum times, regularly, this question comes. Now, this 8 principles. This is Government of India's statement. Okay, the 8 principles which I have given you, that is Government of India statements. So if you can write down these 8 principles, your answer is complete. What is India's nuclear doctrine? Number 1, building and maintaining a credible minimum deterrent. Normally what we say, first of all, when we talk about nuclear policy or nuclear doctrine, generally we say that no first use. What do you mean by no first use? Can anyone tell me?
So we will not use our nuclear weapons against any other if they are not using against us.
Hmm.
We will use our nuclear weapon if they will use against us. Then only we can use. This is called no first use.
Okay. Okay. So no first use is popular in order to understand the nuclear doctrine. But you have to understand one thing, that there are many other principles of nuclear policy than this no first use. Basically, the journalist or the newspaper or the TV channels, they have made it highlighted. That is the reason, like for UPSC examinations, IAS exam, there is nothing called an IAS exam. It is not IAS. It is civil services exam. So similarly here also, whenever the nuclear doctrine comes, then the no first use is being popularized. But apart from no first use, there are many principles which we have to understand. Now, India's nuclear doctrine can be summarized as follows. And what are those thoughts? Building and maintaining a credible minimum deterrent. Do you understand what is this statement all about? I'll explain this. Now, you might be wondering, recently, if you look into the budget, Indian government is trying to spend a lot of money into the defense procurement. And due to which, the opposition member of the Indian government, they are also basically criticizing that why Government of India has to spend a lot of money in terms of procuring the defense equipment. You have to understand that there are many people who may think that why we should procure many defense equipments. The reason is to maintain minimum deterrence. You know, there is a famous quote that a king must always avoid war. There is a famous quote, a king must always avoid war, but be always ready for war. Are you understanding? As far as the war is concerned, the king should never start a war. Always should avoid war, but we shall always ready for the war. So that is the reason why India is building a lot of, if you talk about, like for example, DRDO is developing a lot of weapons, and other sectors are also developing now. The defense sector is partially privatized, like Tata is also building a lot of defense equipment. So why India is procuring and investing a lot of money in terms of procuring in terms of developing the defense equipments or defense capability is because maintaining minimum deterrence. Deterrence means what? Deterrence is like, deterrence what is used, that if somebody will look at you, they will be afraid. Oh my God, I don't want to mess with you. And this is one of the reasons, if you see that in everyday, not every day, especially the parade when happens, we saw our during our parade, we saw our weapons, tanks, and basically you can say about aeroplanes and what extra we have. We saw our BSF forces, army, etc. We saw it. Why? Because we want to see, we want to show to the world this is the capability which we have. And if you mess with us, you will not be leave behind. You will be also being punished. So that is what is called as minimum deterrence. Minimum deterrence is like, I would suggest that minimum deterrence is to prevent the war. But how do you prevent? You prevent by making your opposition understand that we do have capability. We are also equal like you. Okay, that is called as minimum deterrence. Number 2 principle, a posture of no first use. I told you that no first use is not the only principle. There are many principles. No first use nuclear weapons will only be used in retaliation against a nuclear attack. That means if a nuclear attack is being made on India, then India will retaliate. Otherwise, we will not fire nuclear weapons from our side from the first. Basically, it is also criticized. Many people, they criticize that if somebody uses nuclear weapon, half of the country will be gone, and you might not be in a position to utilize your retaliation nuclear weapons. So there is a criticism to that. Third point is nuclear retaliation to a first strike will be massive and designated inflict unacceptable damage. That means what happens? Any, let's say for example, Pakistan, if Pakistan utilizes nuclear weapon on us, we will retaliate with so much heavy and so much massive, and the damage will be much more extensive. Third point is nuclear retaliation attacks can only be authorized by civilian political leaders through the nuclear command authority. Remember, that means the army cannot use nuclear weapons. That has to be authorized by whom? By nuclear command authority, headed by Prime Minister. So Prime Minister and the Cabinet Minister, there are certain Cabinet Minister has to approve first before any nuclear attack. Army cannot, it is not Pakistan that, or it is not like Sudan in Africa that whenever army wants, army can take over. In India, we do have a very good position. Army knows where they want, what is their status. Army cannot overnight control the entire country. So they are accountable to the politics. They are accountable to the politicians, and those politicians whom we have elected. That means army are accountable to people. No use of nuclear weapons against non-nuclear weapon states. That means what? We are nuclear capable country. If one country doesn't have nuclear weapons, we will never use nuclear weapons. However, in the event of a major attack against India or Indian forces anywhere by biological or chemical weapons, India will retain the option of retaliating with nuclear weapons. That means that if let's say for example, India is attacked biologically or chemical weapons, then India will have option. You cannot say that, no, we have attacked using chemical weapons. You also attack us with chemical weapons. That is not the point. If any major attack, then we do have option that we can retaliate with the nuclear weapons. Then the 7th point, a continuance of strict control on export of nuclear and missile related materials, technology, participation of fissile material cut-off treaty negotiation, and continued observation moratorium on nuclear tests. You know that International Atomic Energy, IAE is an agency under the umbrella term of United Nations. They basically regulate, they monitor the nuclear technology development. You know that India has been criticized. When I will teach separately, you will understand that how India, during the time of Vajpayee, then Indira Gandhi, we have tested nuclear weapons. Later on, we were banned. Then MTCR came in picture. Okay, then NATO also came in picture. Then when during the time of Manmohan Singh and George Bush, when visited India, we signed an basically nuclear agreement that we will not use it for the military purpose. We will use it for the civilian purpose. So that means what is happening? The nuclear technology in India will be monitored closely, and it will not be used for military purpose without any authorization. It will be only used for the civilian. Civilian means like electricity generation, etc. Last point, 8th number point, continued commitment to the goal of nuclear weapon free world through global, verifiable, and non-discriminatory nuclear disarmament. Remember, India agrees. India says that okay, if you want us not to have nuclear weapons, we agree, but it should be non-discriminatory. That means what? What do you mean by non-discriminatory? Non-discriminatory means that if you want us to basically destroy our nuclear weapons, all of the countries whosoever has nuclear weapons, including China, US, France, and Pakistan, and the UK, and Russia, every country must also renounce their nuclear weapons. Then only we are agreed to free the nuclear weapons. It is not possible that China has nuclear weapons and you force us that India also should renounce the nuclear weapons. So this is what is said. We are committed towards the free nuclear world. We also don't want nuclear weapon, but that commitment has to be non-discriminatory and verifiable. It should not be that in the blink of saying you should denounce other countries, you are allowing to keep their nuclear weapons. Basically, the NATO countries which originally started because they only wanted to have the power. Like for example, even as the United Nations Security Council, what is the problem is happening? The member, the veto power is only lies with the hereditary like structure, and they don't want to give up the power to any other countries. If the United Nations is itself based on the consensus, itself based on the democratical principle, then why not the UNSC is based on democratical principle? That is one of the criticism to UNSC. So similarly here, what you can write about India's nuclear doctrine, as I told you, that all of this information, whatever I am providing, these are authentic information, and I have referred this only from the Government of India document. So this is the most authentic information. Any question that comes from India's nuclear doctrine, please write it down, these points. First point is building critical minimum deterrence, no first use. Retaliation first strike will be massive. Then you have the, however, in the event of major attack, then we have an option of attacking with nuclear weapons, and strict control with the export of the nuclear and missile technology, and continued commitment towards the goal of nuclear free world. So these are the principles based on which India's nuclear doctrine or India's nuclear policy is on. And in your answer writing, you no need to mention any extra thing. If you can write down this point, you can write in bullet point, you can write in paragraph, that is up to you. But if you write in bullet point, it is better, because these points are very straightforward, and it is better if you can write down. So that's it about the topics. Today's I have explained important topics. For example, I have explained about nuclear doctrine, which is most common topic. Regularly they ask. Non-aligned movement I have discussed, as well as the Panchsheel. I'm not having time, otherwise I could have explained, like for example, India's energy diplomacy and Look East and Act East policy. Perhaps I would take up another class, maybe day after tomorrow we do have another class, where I will try to continue and try to explain the rest of the topics.